Welcome back to the program. Dana Loesch here with you. You can listen coast to coast terrestrially. You can stream the radio program. You can watch the simulcast Facebook, YouTube, Channel 347 DirecTV. One of my favorite people in Congress from Texas, obviously, Congressman Chip Roy joins us. He's got the best background of anybody that we've ever had, I have to say, from Congress. And I love that he was running down the hallway from the floor, and then he didn't know if he was going to have time to make it, and he grabbed somebody's chair or stool, and he just sat right down in the middle of the hallway. And then he had time to get to his office. It was great. I can tell you're crabby, though. I can tell you're mad from all this. Welcome to the show.
Well, we're running around, Dana. Great to be on the show, but we're just trying to frankly keep Republicans honest. And look, I love my Republican colleagues. I'm happy to work with them and anybody up here, Democrats, Republicans, but we should be honest with the American people. And there's a whole lot of cheerleading going on. One way I put it earlier is, if I'm putting this in the light most favorable for my Republican colleagues, we are basically claiming that we're hitting a grand slam, biggest tax cut in history, and all these wonderful things, when at best, it's basically a sacrifice bunt in the ninth inning to move the guy from first to second with one out in the ninth, and you're down 10 runs. But I don't even think it's that good. Frankly, I think we got taken. For example, Greg Casar, a progressive liberal from Austin, Texas, he said, we came out looking like a total fool after talks with Biden. Jamal Bowman has said the same thing, that we got our butts kicked. Look, the fact is, this is a $4 trillion debt increase. That's what it is. And look, I'm happy to debate my colleagues anywhere they want to go. Prove to me that it's not better, basically, effectively, a spending freeze for 2 years in exchange for a $4 trillion debt increase. Then they say, oh, we got work requirements. But the work requirements, basically, we found out yesterday, means there's going to be more people on the SNAP roll, right? They said, oh, we got NEPA reform. Well, I'm not sure the NEPA reforms are that good based on what the former Deputy Secretary of Energy told me under Perry. But all it does is grease the skids for more energy projects. I could keep going down the list, but I don't think we got a great deal.
And I know, too, talking with Congressman Chip Roy from the Republic of Texas, I was looking at also, this was something I think that Mike Lee had said, is that within the bill, I think it's Section 265, it kind of renders meaningless the bill's much touted regulatory reforms as well.
Correct. So Mike Lee has been a champion, as has Rand Paul, of the RAINS Act. CAM Act, there is it here in the House. It would be a great bill. It would say that if a regulation would have an economic impact of about $100 million, Congress would have to approve it. Well, my colleagues, respectfully, who cut the deal, they cut a deal for what they call administrative pay-go. Well, what that means is, and it was a Trump-era policy that my friend Russ Vought, former director of the Office of Management and Budget, who worked for Trump, what they put in place under Trump. But it requires an OMB that will enforce it. In the text of the law, it's waivable. Literally what they said, we will waive this to advance Biden policies. Of course they will. It's ridiculous that they count this as a win. It's not.
Yeah, not a win at all. And I understand, because I've seen so much spin for this, and I know that sometimes a lot of people, people are busy, and I think government has gotten too big, and for a reason, to keep people from being able to simply track what's happening, with their tax dollars federally. I get it that it is a negotiation on budgetary items that have previously been passed by Congress, and that it's a debt ceiling negotiation, not a budget negotiation. However, that doesn't mean that you still can't make demands and have concessions and make reductions, correct?
Correct. And in fact, the debt ceiling is your maximum point of leverage.
Right.
And mind you now, we're only going to have 2 or 3 points of leverage since Republicans took the House last November. One was in December, which Senate Republicans teamed with Democrats to stick it to America and to us. And they passed a $1.7 trillion omnibus bill, lifting spending massively, 10% for defense, 7% for non-defense. Huge loss. We lost all of our leverage on the border. Now you fast forward to the debt ceiling. Now we have leverage again. We had them in the corner because we were united. We passed the Limit State Grow Act, which was pretty awesome. Yes, it increased the debt $1.5 trillion, but it had massive policy changes and serious spending cuts. Now we only really have one more leverage point. Why? Because we're passing this bill, which Democrats basically love. We're going to then take away that leverage until January 1st, 2025 for $4 trillion. And now the only leverage we have remaining are the spending bills in September and next year's spending bills. And that's kind of it. The NDAA, a couple of things that are must pass. We're losing our leverage. And guess what? I'm trying to find the real wins for the country. How are we going to claw back the DEI and all the woke stuff? How are we going to truly, actually bend the curve down instead of just softening the spending curve and then say it's somehow, the most historic cuts in history?
Yeah.
Look, if you save a few bucks, a small percentage of a massive amount of spending, because we're now spending $6 trillion a year post-COVID, yeah, it might be the most cuts in history because now we're spending so much damn money.
True. Doing the math. That's why I'm like, I don't really think that's completely genuine to say it like that. Talking with Congressman Chip Roy,
correct.
The IRS agents, the way that I read this, that's just a year reprieve. So we would be kicking the can down the road, literally right into the next election cycle. That seems like a win for Democrats.
I mean, I'm trying to find pieces of this bill that aren't predominantly wins for Democrats. They keep their Green New Deal agenda in place. The spending is literally a freeze. The IRS expansion stays almost entirely in place. The REINS Act is not implemented. Just go down the list. And on the IRS question, what my colleagues will say who cut the deal is that they got $1.4 billion removed from this year's ability to expand the IRS. Now, keep in mind, their regular budget is about $8 or $9 billion a year. They're going to continue to have that unless we take it away in appropriations, which technically we could. And they're going to leave the rest of the $78.6 billion in place. Now they'll say, don't worry, we'll go after it again in the future. Remember, they made it our number one priority to defund the IRS expansion. We passed that bill out of the gate in January, but it does no good to pass a bill and then walk away from it when you actually have the leverage point to force its inclusion. Same thing, by the way, for the student loans. We passed a bill last week to get rid of the student loans because we said, oh, the president doesn't have that power. It's unconstitutional. It's unlawful. But when it came to the actual decision time, the you-know-what cutting time, we allowed them to pull the student loan repeal out. Why would we do that? We have a duty to defend the Constitution. We shouldn't have let them walk away from taking the student loan cancellation out.
And you mentioned too, Congressman, the trying to do the appropriations process, but doesn't this kind of kill? I think you mentioned this, and I think there were a couple of other lawmakers who mentioned that it kind of takes away your leverage for that.
It certainly makes the debate in the fall much more difficult because we capitulated and cut a deal with Democrats rather than holding the line that we could say was truly something that represents the entirety of the Republican conference and force a few Dems to join us to get it done. Instead, it was a deal cut with Dems. That does not bode well heading into appropriations. And oh, by the way, with all due respect to those who keep touting this 1% automatic CR at the end of the year, there's nothing automatic about it. It is literally just an adjustment to a cap for January 1, which, by the way, will absolutely get voted out of existence when we get to the end of the year and there's a big omnibus bill and all of the defense hawks and everybody in this town say, hey, we got to pass this bill right before Christmas. And then we will be forced with the same question we had yesterday in the Rules Committee. Will 3 Republicans stand up and say no to a bad rule? 2 of us did. The question will be this fall, when we get a bad bill in the Rules Committee, will 3 of us block it?
Are there spending caps?
Are there spending caps?
Yeah.
There are 2 years of spending caps, which basically is why I call it a spending freeze. Because It's about 2 years of spending caps. You start at a $12 billion cut, and then it goes up 1%. And so you basically have a spending freeze for 2 years. Now, by the way, there's one other piece to that. The COVID money, which was rescinded, there was $28 billion. $6 billion was actually rescinded. The other $22 billion was moved into an account at the Department of Commerce to sit in there that isn't against the cap. It's just sitting there to be used as play money. Why? Because everybody in this town is pre-wired to save and be able to find a way to spend money. So they want to have some money there to go backfill the non-defense spending. That's all part of the game. Same thing with the IRS, by the way. I'm told, hey, Chip, don't worry. We're going to go get $10 billion a year out of the IRS. Okay, well, you're promising me you're going to do that in appropriations. Let me take you at your word. But what you're promising me is you're going to go get $10 billion out of IRS and go move it over to non-defense in order to backfill the spending cuts to the other bureaucrat. This town is on autopilot. We're trying to stop it. And unfortunately, this deal keeps it on autopilot.
Last question for you. I know you're super busy, and we appreciate your time today. I see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that she's leaning yes. I know Congressman Thomas Massey, very good friend of ours. I know he's a good friend of yours too. I think he's got some different motivations. He was talking about, getting it off the floor and having everybody yell about, or getting it to the floor and having everybody yell about it. And we've reached out to him, and I think he's going to come on. He's working with his schedule because I'm very interested in hearing kind of his the machinations on that. But what is your take? I mean, there are a couple people I'm a little surprised about. I mean, Massey always has, I think, a secret hand. But there are a couple people I'm a little surprised at, and I'm just wondering, is it, are they trying to curry favor with leadership? Like, what's going on?
Well, look, Thomas is one of my best friends here in Washington, and I always want to keep it that way.
Yes.
And so it's hard when you disagree with your friends, kind of like when you have some disagreements. I know you and Chris, you guys never, have disagreements in your house.
Oh, never, ever, right? I'm always right, is why, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I know he's a smart man, right? He's he's always right. But look, Thomas and I disagree on this. You'll have to ask Thomas. I will only say where I think there's some strong disagreement is that this 1% deal at the end of the year will do any good. It only does good if we're willing to stand up and stop a rule that will inevitably be jammed through because we have the same pressures that were brought to bear this week. So in other words, you got to just play with the card in front of you. Everybody likes to play chess. Oh, it's 3D chess and all these things. Look, man, Congress is actually kind of checkers. You just got to be willing to hold the line. You just got to be willing to say, look, man, no. Don't overcomplicate this crap, right? You don't need a crazy method to actually achieve what you need to do when you just stand up. So again, I love Thomas. Talk to him about it.
Yeah, it'll be good conversation. Congressman Chip Roy, we appreciate you. Appreciate you breaking it down for everybody as well. I mean, you got a way of doing it that cuts through all the BS, so we appreciate that. Thanks for joining us today.
It gets me in trouble sometimes, but thanks, Dan.
There you go. No, it's great. We appreciate it.